Study thoroughly Moses's last admonition in the latter chapters or 30th of Deuteronomy. Know that this means thee. Learn the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. Make those promises thine own. Then, with that will that knows no defeat, the entity may accomplish here and now, in this experience, much that seemingly has just escaped the entity in its ability to make contacts or to get the proverbial break in its associations and activities. Let not thy heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Cling closer, call until he answers. For the promise has ever been, though ye may be far, if ye will call believing I will hear, and answer speedily. Read again and again, the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John, not merely as wrote, but as though ye as an individual were speaking to thy Lord, thy Master, thy brother. And ye will find the answer, ye will find that doubt and fear, and those things that may have troubled thee will flee away, and there will come that peace as is promised. Know that he is able to keep that he hath promised. For he overcame death, hell and the grave, and is the God of the living, not of the dead nor of the past. For all is the present, now, in him. As the Father, the Son and the Holy Ghost are one, so are thy body, mind and soul one. Hold them, hold that as a fact, as an understanding, and ye will find peace. What should be my line of study and procedure to gain a clearer understanding of myself and fulfill the real purpose of this incarnation? As indicated, the studying to show thyself approved unto that ideal thou hast chosen, as one willing, ready to fulfill that thou hast found, that thou dost daily find is an expression of the glory ye put in thy ideal. As to the manners of preparation, none better than reading certain portions of Holy Writ, not merely as wrote, but seeing and experiencing and saying that the message is to thee, thy consciousness, thy soul, that it is to thee that the promises are made. Read that found in the 30th of Deuteronomy and in the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. Make them thine own experience. Parallel material for study group work. The Bible is the best parallel, especially the admonition by Moses after he had finished all of his own egotism and had come to realize that there was not to be the experience in self for the enjoying of that as had been builded, owing to that weakness of selfishness. Also the great leader. That's the last chapters of Deuteronomy, of 30th on. Also the study of Joshua, not only as the soldier but rather as the leader, as the commander that would give as few, let others do as they may, but for me and my house, we will serve a living God. Then the Psalms, especially the 1st, the 2nd, the 24th, the 91st, the 23rd, the 67th, the 150th. All of these become as portions of this part of parallel work. Then all of those that are now being prepared for presentation each Sunday upon the radio. Also William James, Thompson J. Hudson, the research upon Eusapia Palladino, also the findings of various individuals as have studied into individual interpretations. These should be part of parallel work. Do not leave out those, to be sure, of the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th chapters of John, of 3rd John, of Jude, of Revelations. Read the 30th of Deuteronomy, the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. Learn them by heart. Make them thine own life. Make them thy relationships to others. And these will aid in balancing the reflexes and the reactions mentally and physically. Study particular portions of the scripture. Not that these portions are to be merely memorized so that they may be repeated, though do this, but meditate upon their meaning as applying to self. See self as being spoken to and same. For, these apply to self. The 30th of Deuteronomy, especially those verses that pertain to self and the spirit of creative forces that manifests in self. Then the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. In these see self daily as being spoken to. How may my mind and body be cleansed for meditation? No better way than that we have given. Cleanse first thy body, in making preparation for each day's meditation, in the way or manner that seemeth well unto thee. Then open thine self that the glory of the Father through the promises in the Christ may be magnified in thine inner self. Study well those promises that are thine in the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th chapters of John in the King James Version, and know that these refer to thee. In each line, in each verse, see self receiving those promises, those blessings that he has promised. For, as he gave, he that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet, receives a prophet's reward. Let not thine heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Then, in making application of those things that would be more helpful, more beneficial, much of the general attitude of the body should be taken into consideration. Not that there is fault being found, but we are indicating that as will be the more helpful the constantly thinking creative influences and forces, the application of self in creative thinking or making practical in the daily experience those suggestions as may be had from the study of the 30th of Deuteronomy and making the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John a daily routine, not as something to be as a theory, but as practiced and applied in the daily activity and associations with others. Regarding the mental and spiritual. What books should I read for my best development? This should be rather a matter of choice by the body, from and for its own mental development. For, as indicated in the varying activities of the body from that given as the purpose, aims, desires, or the lines in which the greater development may come within this individual experience, there are varying channels that become the most interesting to the body for its better development. Naturally, any books along those lines and of kindred subjects that are considered to be of an authoritative nature are well. However, for the general development in the mental attributes or the spiritual forces, nothing is better than the Psalms, John, especially the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th chapters, and the letters of John and James. Give scale of auras and what development of the soul each one means. These vibrations, that are emanations from the activity of an entity and its individuality, run in the same ratio as do the colors, that are known as the primary colors, and their shades, running from the low red or orange through all of the colors to the higher reds, these being at the extremes. Each indicates the step of development, whether, as the first, toward the purely carnal, material or earth forces, or to the mental proclivities, or to the higher forces in the greens and reds that indicate the spiritual developments. There is daily set before thee good and evil, life and death. Choose thou. Depart not from this. Take his word, the Holy Bible. It is man's attempt through the direction of the Spirit of truth, of universal consciousness, to indicate man's relationship to that creative force, God, and God's approach to man's consciousness of his relationship to God. Thus, take these portions particularly, not that there is one portion greater than the other, but these are the conclusions of the lawgiver, as indicated in the 30th chapter of Deuteronomy, as indicated in the King James Version is called. These are the conclusions of the matter with that individual entity, Moses, after 120 years of seeking his relationships to God. Then take the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. Here we find the conclusions of him who is the way, the truth, the light. In him ye may find thyself, thy abilities, that are the gifts of the creative force and his mindfulness of thee, of his promises to thee, and how he may sustain thee day by day, never leaving thee alone. In Venus, though, for this entity, we find the beauty in everything with which the entity comes in contact. And what a wonderful characteristic, to see the beauty even in that which in the eyes of others would be ugly. That which is the Lord's, and the fullness of the earth is his, has its beauty if it is sought. The ability to attract others, the ability to heal, arises from these influences. And this should be the applied study of the individual entity in this experience, awakening to the realization of the help as in the Christ consciousness may be brought into the lives of individuals. There is no greater service than awakening an individual to the consciousness of that presence which may abide within. Oft read, then, the 30th of Deuteronomy, and the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. make them as thy signposts, as thy daily guide. For indeed in the Father's house are many mansions, and if it were not so he would have told thee. But he goes, he prepares a place for thee, that where he is, there ye may be also, and that indeed ye may know that glory ye had with the Father before the foundations of the world. How can I be guided so that I will work towards the right goal? Study to show thyself approved unto God. Turn within. Find the answer as ye would in the admonition given by Moses, in the 30th of Deuteronomy it is within. And then, as thy companion, as thy aid daily, read and apply as being personal the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th of John. For he may walk with thee, if ye will walk in the light of that he has promised. To read, to write. Read, in the beginning, the 3rd verse of the 1st chapter of Genesis and read thine own fate, thine own ability. For, whomsoever will may have the light within. Then read again in Exodus 19:5, and who will be a peculiar people? They who keep the law of the Lord. What is the law? Thou shalt love the Lord, thy God, with all thine heart, thy mind and thy body, and thy neighbor as thyself. Then again read Deuteronomy 30th, the whole chapter, as it were, to thee. Then Psalms 24, 23, 91. For each bears a message to thee. Then again in St. John 14, 15, 16, 17. Find when ye are on the pattern and when ye wander afield. Then in the 12th of Romans and the 7th of Hebrew, ye will find thine own answer. Not that these are tenets beyond that included in the love of God, the love of neighbor, rather as his last commandment. I give unto you, love one another. During the period of meditation, let someone read certain portions of the scripture, as the 23rd Psalm, 1st Psalm, 24th Psalm, 30th of Deuteronomy, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th of St. John, 11th of Hebrews, the 7th of Romans. Use such periods to begin and then meditate, listening for the still small voice within. For it is in thine own temple he has promised to meet thee. Are the nerves of motivation dead? If they are, may they not be renewed? Isn't the body renewed at least once every 7 years? Who is to renew it? Who is the giver of life? By pure coordination, pure faith, pure desire to be what God would have thee be. Ye have much work to do in this material plane. Don't become impatient with self, with others. Know ye are indeed the Lord's only as ye fulfill his commandments. Read Psalms 119 under the section Tau. Also St. John 14, especially 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th verses and then those latter portions of the 15th chapter. Apply them to self. Then the attitude of the body. Begin not as to become just the opposite of what has been in the last 2 years, but read the 30th of Deuteronomy, especially those portions as to how that which the body would learn is within self. This applies physically as well as mentally, and then turn to the promises in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th of St. John, and know thy Redeemer liveth. He was tempted like as thee. He understands. He will forgive, and you will find there will come a relief to the body. Then apply self in just being helpful, just being kind, just being patient, just being long-suffering with others, as ye would have thy Maker by with thee, and we will bring relief. And, as we find, so far as the mental attitudes of the body are concerned, do not make these treatments become as rote, but know that they are being effective in the body to produce that desired. So read and study the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th chapters of the Gospel, according to St. John not as rote, but knowing that these words are to be directed to self. And let self find that the voice is speaking from within and directing to self what the self may do in its relationships to others. Make these a portion of self and of self's attitudes towards others. Let it become so that the body feels inwardly, to me, 770, he is speaking. Let not thyself be troubled. Ye believe. Believe in me. Let thy going in, thine coming out before him be acceptable in his sight, irrespective of what others may do or say. For he or she that forsakes not father, mother, husband, wife, for his sake, is not worthy of his name. Let thy prayer, thy meditation, be as this. Here am I, use me, O God, as thou seest I have need of that I, calling thy name, may know what thou wouldst have me do. Let my attitude to my fellow man, mine loved ones, mine friends, mine enemies, be such that my life, my expressions of hope and joy and kindness, may reflect his life to others. Keep my tongue, keep my feet, in those ways, in those paths, that lead to the understandings thou wouldst have me have now. First, find self in its relation to creative forces, creative activities that become manifested in material things. Make a study of that which may be attained through not only the reading, but the interpreting of that found in the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th chapters of St. John. Make these a portion of self. For thy strength that thou wast denied in the use of in the Atlantean period, as Essel, may find in the present experience that of bringing to thy fellow man the more perfect understanding of how those influences from the creative forces are applicable in the experience of every soul. What causes the fears with which I am obsessed at the present time, and how can I overcome them? Only by changing the mental attitude. These arise, as just indicated, from the supersensitiveness of the whole body to the environments and activities that have been about the body, see. Then, if the mental attitude is set much in that way and manner as may be best obtained from the 14th chapter of St. John, it would be the better. Read that before retiring. Read that when any fears come about, we will find a different attitude. What subjects should the entity write on for the association pamphlets he wishes to do now? Give subjects in the order of importance. As we find, these should be such as stress more the necessity of the spiritual attitude in seeking for information through these channels. First, then, we would give a pamphlet on mental and spiritual readings, their relationships to the physical and life reading, and the necessity of the individual knowing the meaning of karma and life before asking a mental and spiritual direction. Then any of those. As of prayer, as presented in the readings, and how that obtained is according to the attitude of the individual seeking to aid or help self. Then any phase, but these three especially in the beginning. Mental and spiritual readings, then prayer, then, as ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them, as presented in the information, which is taken from, first. Exodus 19:5, Deuteronomy 30, St. John 14, 15, 16. These are to be used merely as the background of that which is presented in same, in the information, for the readings of the association. What spiritual truth should the entity make as the great objectives in the book, What is Truth? Much of that which would be taken from the verses and chapters given may be used as the basis, see. Will this source help him as he progresses with the book? Should he prepare questions? There should be questions prepared from the beginning, and these will be carried through. What information now in the files will help him with the book and the pamphlets? This will necessarily have to be sought out by those who classify information. Please give a prayer for meditation to be used while writing the pamphlets, the book, and the poem. Father, Mother God. In thy mercy, in thy love, be thou the guide just now, as I seek in humility and in earnestness to present that which may give my fellow man a better and a more perfect insight into the love which was manifested by Jesus, my Lord and my God. Help, thou, O God, my every effort.